Sometimes even when in that state, they harbor ego, and it's even more deceptive. You will never know. So we have to be careful, knowing that the works is upon us, the duty is upon us to shape ourselves, to admit to the things that religiously and culturally has built our life to make us become the monsters or what we have become. We are not actually monsters in our way, but the monsters, the demonic things dwell within us or sort of walk by us every day. And that aggressiveness to achieve or to get what we want is the problem, is what is developed into us that is causing the problem, that is bringing us into the state of trying to, prove something every day. And whatever we choose to prove, it ends up drowning us, because it is not right. It is always negative. It's always got a negative impact or negative results, and it drowns us and it puts us into that situation. Now, it is not evidently clear that it is our own fault. That's why I say at the end of the day, we point to God. You don't point to any other. It is the living God who knows the future and knows the end and created everything. He's responsible for your life. He's responsible for the surroundings of your life. He's responsible for everything. You can't spend your life thinking that God is not responsible for the things or the demonic things you face and the non-demonic things that you sort of benefit from. God is responsible for everything. If your God is the God that we are talking about, the God, the living God, that you believe, the ultimate God that brought everything into existence, then why do you have to think otherwise? But this has become the case. But to my view, that is why it's necessary to resolve it. Culture and religion. The faith that builds us up into believing in the divine entity, existence of the divine entity that as a result has brought it into being, and how we have been able to, so we can be able to bring out or reveal the natural cause, the true nature that we are, and help us to separate ourselves from the irrelevant things that we took upon ourselves through faith and culture that may not necessarily be the issues of our life, and start embracing the true nature of ourselves. Take the guilt out of our life, or any ways to prevent guilt, anyhow we know fit. Walk on the path that we can achieve something more solid and beneficial to our life. I mean, our own effort is earning us what we have to earn. Should that be attributed to God? No, you can't. The human life is a moving, living, divine, living beings or living things that have got the ability of movement and all the attributes that we see every day. And that attribute was given by God. But we are solely responsible to sort of make the actions that we do. We are responsible for the things that we do. So if we have that responsibility individually by ourselves, not unto others, somebody is not your responsibility necessarily. You have responsibility that you owe it to yourself to be responsible to your own life. And that responsibility that you owe to yourself, if you focused on that carefully, you realize that you have the ability to do certain things. And whatever you do, you have to know that that is your works that you have done. If you create a robot or you create anything or you do anything, that is your ability. You have done that. It is not God that did that. But God is the one who did you, who created you. God is the one who did the things that are not yours. You give credit to God on that, including yourself. So you thank God for you. But when it comes to the things that you do, you can't give credit to God for that. That isn't God's issue. That is your issue. He gave you the ability to do that. That is where the mistake and the errors comes in. We mistakenly give our works and all our attributes which are negative and probably not necessarily perfect, the imperfect ways of our life, we attribute it to God. And when we do that, we are generating something else, not necessarily what God is supposed to be. But that if there is that true God that we believe, that we have to believe, that we link ourselves to, then you and I should have to agree to see through the lines and realize that his attributes are visible to us every day of our life. And those good attributes that are visible to us is what we even live upon or use to sort of build our life and mold ourselves. But we use it wrongly, and it brings all kinds of things to us. And that curses is what we have to remember to sort of be able to, if possible, to eradicate it as much as we can, as possible. How, if we can eradicate it, I mean, that is the main thing, to be able to put off forever or for good whatever that is evil, whatever is destructive of our soul, so that we can move forward into the directions that we so please. Now, I'm not suggesting that these things are something that I personally developing, or no, not necessarily that. It is clear that this is how life is. The pros and cons of life are not a secret from anybody. We talk about demon things, we talk about voodoo things, we know about all these things. Today's life and practical life, a baby or a child even is aware of it. And so it is not something new, but we know the evil of it. We know the reason why we are always aware of ourselves, because of the life that we have today. That is why we are aware and always conscious of ourselves. That is why we are always splitting apart, and we are not someone coming together or merging together. We are always splitting apart instead of merging. Our faith tells us that we are coming from a merging end, or let's say we are coming from a moment where a narrow moment, and we were widening ourselves as we came down, as we sort of start spreading, and we are believing in the other way around of where we have the source of which we have come about. We are looking at things in an independent form of state, and as these things keep affecting us, we still make it worse by adding laws and generate laws that stands in the way of what we are supposed to understand. Now, that understanding may not necessarily be the truth. That I am with that, because the authenticity of these books have not been built or had not been established. So there's no way I even fall for these stories. Still, the story is still suspending out there. Nobody knows the truth, the entire truth of what it is, or where life began from, or how life began. It may be possible that it wasn't one creation, but there were more creations after that. Because if you read this book, there are loopholes that makes us not be able to resolve the point of saying that we all came from one end. And it's obvious that we all look different, and we all have different, but we may have the characteristics that give us a way into the idea that we are one, or we came from one end. And we may come from different ends, but nothing stops us from being one. But the idea is that the only thing that stops us is what we believe. If we have different cultures and different understanding and different faith, then we are bound to end up having different beliefs, different understanding, and being different, and somehow not being able to merge and be unite as we should. And if we try to do it, we have also already given ourselves to the consequences that may come or that may fall upon our lives. So it's a very complicated thing, but it won't be complicated as we go on. I'm going to point out in details what I think, the choices that if one do, that may not necessarily be laws or living with laws or anything, but choices that brings you to a place where you see the self-control, the moments where you may be upset, but still you may have your peace. You may be objective to some things, but still you may do it in a very polite and more acceptable way which